Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another Raiders Daily live on Bleacher Report. Whether you're watching live, make sure we're getting it going in the chat, voting in all these polls we got going. Whether you're watching after the fact on YouTube, thank you so much for coming back and watching another stream or video. My name is Rodney. We do this every Thursday and Friday, 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, and we do it every day on Bleacher Report. Momo and does Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. I do Thursday and Friday. We're actually going to read an article from Mo himself. We're going to get into a lot of stuff here. OTAs just started. We finally got most of the people participating in different, scrimmages and different drills. We got a lot to break down and discuss. Rookies are flashing potential. Max Crosby couldn't be happier with Pete Carroll, blah, blah, blah. We're also going to talk about some areas of need on the roster that we're still going to have to address. Bleacher Report put out 2 articles. One of them discusses every team's needs, and it talks about their salary cap situation, their trade assets, all the top things there. And then they put out a list of players, and it is how many players? It's 10 players who they can't believe are still not yet signed, and they talk in detail about how the Raiders specifically should be in on a couple of these guys. And I wholeheartedly agree. And we're going to be putting polls out here regularly to talk about this. And obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, you can't vote in the live polls, but you can comment below your thoughts on all these available free agents. Okay. So look, before we get into all this, let's just talk about the elephant in the room. Let's just get it out of the way. Everybody can see it. I have really, 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 protruding tan lines. Okay, it is what it is. What do you want me to do about it? I don't exactly have the physique to go outside with my shirt off all day. Okay, it is what it is. I live in sunny southern Utah, and we're getting hammered with the sun, and the whites of my skin are starting to protrude a little bit. It is what it is. We're just gonna have to deal with it. Okay, as grown ups, I have tan lines. And I apologize. So let's just that's actually like sneaky bars. I have tan lines and I apologize. There could be like an Eminem lyric in there. Anyway, I don't know what I'm talking about. Let's discuss the OTAs right off the rip because I want to talk about that before we talk about potential targets that we could still get into going after, especially post June 1st when we get a little bit more money after all this dead cap leaves. That's like the official new league year start, or the unofficial. The official is like in March, but the unofficial new league year when you get influx of cash because of these post June 1st cuts. Not only do you get more money, but there's going to be more people to be able to get on the market. And I want to discuss that in a little bit. And let me just say real quick, shout out to my patrons of the $5 tier. Oh, I clicked the wrong thing. Bang. $5 tier patrons. If you want to become a $5 tier patron and become executive producer of the ALLaBorde Raiders channel, link is in the description below to my Patreon, patreon.com/ALLaBorde Raiders. You get, like I said, your name at the end of the credits because you're an executive producer. You get exclusive content never before seen on YouTube. You get ad-free content. You get the videos days in advance. You get all that good stuff. And if you want to become one of these beautiful people, like I said, link is in the description below. And also, could you hit that subscribe button? About 50% of you that are watching are lurking. Hit that sub button. Let's get to 13th thou. We're about halfway to 12.9, and then we're about 100 more to 13. And also, if you want to be notified when my videos are live, hit that bell and make sure notifications are enabled on your cellular device if that's where you watch me on. Okay, thank you. Back to the video. Let's talk about OTAs because obviously there's a lot to discuss here and there's a lot of news coming out of it. And I know Mo discussed a little bit on Bleach Report yesterday. I want to give my 2 cents on all that. And, this is for the YouTube people as well that are watching after the fact. And then we'll get into some polls here. But for right now, let's talk about this. This is from Levi Dombro. This is yesterday. Raiders only take 1 day of OTAs to provide clarity on 2 major storylines. Are we all good here? Yeah, we're all good here. Okay. So he starts off by saying, the Las Vegas Raiders are a completely changed team. By the way, every time I see this, I want to absolutely puke. Just loss. Anyway, the Las Vegas Raiders are a completely changed team under head coach Pete Carroll and general manager John Spytek. However, several teams' problems remain the same heading into this season. Starting left tackle Colt Miller still needs a contract with guaranteed money for this season, as the previous regime was not able to strike a deal. Early reports in the offseason indicated that he was sitting out of the team's offseason program looking for a resolution. Defensive tackle Christian Wilkins also needed to recover well from a broken foot to justify the franchise's $110 million, dollar investment they made in him last offseason. Well, he seemed to be on track at the end of the year. Varying reports have indicated that he had a snag in his recovery process. So yeah, I mean the Christian Wilkins thing, that's absolutely an issue. I mean, let's just talk about it right now. Las Vegas had its first day of OTAs on Monday, and the media was allowed in the building for their second practice on Wednesday. This provided clarity on both of these crucial storylines heading into 2025. News 3 Las Vegas's Jesse Merrick confirmed that Miller was in attendance and participating in the team's practice on Wednesday. However, according to the Athletics' Deshaun Reed, Wilkins was at practice but did not have his helmet or participate in drills. Carroll provided an update on his progress after practice, and this was a little this was a little concerning, what Pete Carroll had to say. This has been a difficult recovery, Carroll said. He's not ready to get back there. We're in the midst of a long, challenging process. Fortunately, there's a lot of time. We're going to take every little bit of it while we're trying to be diligent. While this is not exactly the vote of confidence the Raider Nation would like, at least an update has now come directly from the source. Okay, so we're going to stop sharing that for the time being. I want to talk about two things in particular: Colt Miller and Christian Wilkins. Colton Miller, I do believe, is going to sign a new contract. I'm sure they're in preliminary discussions right now, which is why he's participating in, the offseason OTAs. And what's amazing about Colton Miller, and I've had a lot to say about Colton Miller, and I get flamed in the comments for this. I say he's not an elite Trent Williams type offensive tackle. Sometimes he plays to that level. Sometimes he's not great, but he's consistent, and you'd be hard pressed to find 10 tackles in the league that are better than Colton Miller. The only issue with him is a little bit of inconsistency on these one-on-one type drills during the games with star pass rushers and an ability to stay on the field. So yes, I would love to extend Colton Miller, but it's all for the right price. And we'll get into the salary cap situation in a little bit, because if you spend, more money on your homegrown talent like Colton Miller, like maybe Jacoby Myers, they already figured out Geno Smith's contract and Max Crosby's contract. You're going to have to not get one of these potential free agents that we're going to talk about later on in the video, because, you're not going to have as much money to go get these guys. So you have to weigh the options. Do you extend Colton Miller for this big bag and bypass a chance to improve your defense? What's higher value to you? A middle linebacker who can help us tremendously, or a corner, or Colton Miller? Only time will tell. But all that to say, the type of player Colton Miller is, there was reports he's not going to show up for OTAs. There he is, practicing, working his tail off. There's a reason throughout all the turnover and all the regime changes and the coaches and the GMs and the influx of new talent and old talent and veterans and rookies, there has been one player since 2018 that has still been on the roster. Him and Max Crosby. Is this right? I believe Max Crosby and Colton Miller are the last existing players from that Oakland Raiders team. The last time they played in Oakland in 2019. And the fact that I just said Oakland Raiders out loud, it feels weird to me. It used to feel weird to say Las Vegas. Now it feels weird to say Oakland. But Colton Miller is a high character, high floor guy. It's just a matter of getting the right contract for somebody who's a little bit older, for a left tackle, still in the prime of his career, but is going to age out of his prime by the time his contract is finished. It's a fine line you have to walk, but I trust John Spytek and his ability to figure that out. The other thing that's obviously more of a concern, right, is Christian Wilkins. And the polls out here now, I'm concerned about this because reports came out earlier this month, or was it even like right before the draft, that he might have to miss a significant amount of next season to fully recover from this foot injury. And it didn't come from Adam Scheffner. It didn't come from Ian Rappaport. So we were taking it with a grain of salt. Not to take a shot at the person who reported that, but it just is what it is. They aren't at that level of everything they say is, written in stone. And he was in that walking boot on Max Crosby's podcast, but then he was out of the walking boot. The fact that he didn't participate in OTAs doesn't concern me. But what does concern me is Pete Carroll's, what's the word I'm looking for here? the pretty straightforward, stern response to the question about Christian Wilkins, which was, yeah, he's having a tough time. Like, he didn't sugarcoat it. He was pretty blunt and to the point and said, it's an issue, no doubt about it. And I was talking with my dad yesterday, and he said, well, it's unfortunate that, this signing, if he gets hurt, this signing was a complete bust. And I said, well, it's not anybody's fault in particular. It's not like he was injury prone before this or had a history of like missing tons and tons of games. This is just how the chips fell. And unfortunately, a couple games into his season last year, he gets hurt and he has to have multiple foot surgeries. And this is a for real issue. And this makes me think that this report is real. And this is a positive and a negative because it confirms maybe the worst, but shows that we're trying to be prepared for the worst. We didn't draft, two defensive tackles in the draft for no reason. Tonka Hemingway and JJ Pegues are there along with Adam Butler and a couple other UDFAs that we signed, right? To potentially fill the void as a collective unit that Christian Wilkins is going to leave you here. Like, think about Moneyball for a second. Like, they couldn't find the next Johnny Damon, right? But what they had to do was get a bunch of guys that could add up to Johnny Damon's statistical output. So you're not going to get most likely a Tonka Hemingway or a JJ Pegues or an Adam Butler to take that next step to become Christian Wilkins 2.0. But if you can get a couple tackles for loss from Pegues, a couple sacks from Tonka, a forced fumble or two from Adam Butler, you could start to, plug that big gap that we have, because that's a massive setback again for us this year. And that's another reason why I'm just not ready to just be like, yep, we're gonna make the playoffs 10 wins. You might think, oh, it's silly for you to do that with somebody who's not like an all pro type player, but Christian Wilkins in the middle, alongside Max Crosby and Malcolm Kuntz. That's a deadly combination. You take that puzzle piece away, and now it's incomplete. So hopefully Pegues and Tonka can rise to the occasion and can again fill that void that I've been talking about. But as of right now, it is at least mildly concerning. I kind of agree with where this poll is. I'm not very maybe I am very concerned. Depends on the day. If I'm having a good day, I'm mildly concerned. If I'm having a bad day, if I'm thinking about my tan lines, I'm very concerned. So yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on that? Let me know in the chat. I know some people have said they're having difficulties typing in the chat, but there's also the same people that said they're having difficulty voting in the polls. So I'm not sure if that's an account thing, if you have to make a new account or whatever. I'll try to find out an answer for you there if I can. But I do agree. I'm pretty concerned with the Wilkins injury. We're going to read back the rest of this article here. And by the way, if you're on YouTube, comment below. Let me know your thoughts. Okay. So let's get back to the rest of this article here, which talks about some of the standouts of OTAs. Okay, so it's been a difficult recovery, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we're right here. Okay, so let me just make sure everything's good. Yep, we're good. Okay. As for the other happenings in OTAs, it appears that the defense won Wednesday's practice. Interesting after all that. Not that this really matters, but it's still interesting and fun to read it. And the offense won Mondays. Oh, okay. The defense had several interceptions on Wednesday, as various reports confirm that Jeremy Chin, Tommy Eichenberg, Chris Smith II all intercepted Geno Smith. Lonnie Johnson Jr. also picked off Aiden O'Connell. I love hearing a lot about Jeremy Chin being an absolute dog out there. That's what Pete Carroll had a lot to say in his press conference about Jeremy Chin in particular. And Tommy, look, maybe Tommy, they saw what they saw on film, this new regime, Pete Carroll and John Spytek, and they said, we can work with Eichenberg to make him a pretty decent player because, he wasn't great last year, but he was a young player and he kind of got thrown into the fire with a bad football team. So we'll see what happens with old Tommy Eichenberg. The offense did have several good moments. However, as reports indicated that Geno Smith's deep ball looked to be in midseason form, rookie Dante Thornton beat Chin for a deep touchdown, and Trey Tucker got behind the defense for a lengthy score as well. Okay, let's talk about that. I think a lot of us, well, Geno looked bad, that's my takeaway. Well, I just read you that he might have looked good on Monday. So, it's OTAs. There's no pads. We talked a lot about that slot position, that speed threat. Is it going to be Dante? Is it going to be Trey Tucker? I'm actually going to stop sharing for a second because I think this is an interesting conversation. If I had to put money on it, I would say Trey Tucker's gonna be that slot deep threat to start the season, although Dante's a bigger body. I think Trey Tucker's just a seasoned player at this point, coming into his 3rd season. That's crazy to say. Now, if Dante beats him, I think that's more of a indication on the player that Dante is in Trey Tucker, because Trey Tucker's good. Like, he's okay. When he has a quarterback that can throw the football more than 30 yards, like Aiden O'Connell, he can show up and make some plays. When you've got players that just think and dunk, he's a non-factor. But saying or reading here that they're both making big time plays in OTAs, again, take it all with a grain of salt. I understand. If they could both get on the field at the same time, if that's the impact that they could have, look out. If Jacoby Myers needs a blow and Dante or Jack is your wide receiver one, and then you've got Trey Tucker and Dante on the field at the same time, and they're both good enough to make impacts consistently at the same time, that can unlock a level of our offense that we haven't yet discussed. Because I think a lot of us have just been saying, is it Trey Tucker? Is it Dante Thornton? If it's both, if they're just competing their tails off and both of them are playing, that could be big time for us. So let's get back to the rest here. Okay. Carroll noted that the defensive standouts from the day included Chin, Landon Roberts, and Eric Stokes. Well, that's good to hear that Eric Stokes is a standout, because we need these corners to play better. While things are not expected to be anywhere near perfection at this point in the offseason, it seems like the team is getting plenty of great work done in the early going. A mixture of strong plays from the offense and defense is right in the sweet spot for a team, as Raider Nation knows all too well what it looks like in the regular season when one side of the ball is not challenged in the off season. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. So, yeah, look, again, we're not going to sit here and say Dante Thornton is a star in the making. Tommy Eichenberg, all pro middle linebacker, because he made a couple plays. But on the flip side, we also can't go, oh, Geno Smith is bad because he threw a couple interceptions. They're running like base level offensive and defensive plays. It's not in pads. It's like 11 on 11, 7 on 7, soft, right? I'm sure they're going 100%. But the key takeaway there for me is you want to have it balanced. You want the offense to win a couple days, the defense to win a couple days. And you want to make sure that you're hearing a lot about these young guys, the Eichenbergs, right? We know Jeremy Chinn's going to play well. We know Stokes can play well. They've played well in the middle of a regular season in the National Football League. We want to hear about Tonka Hemingway and Brock Bowers, right? And Ashton Genty and Jack Besh. And all reports are saying that Jack Besh is a stud. I didn't bring the tweet up here because I think it was from a couple days ago, but Vinny Bonsignor tweeted, if he had to put money down on the leading target getters week one, it's going to be Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers, and Jack Besh. And that's huge for us because when we talk about the upcoming free agents here, or not upcoming, the free agents that are still available, there's a couple wide receivers. And Mo doesn't have us being interested in one of those guys, or doesn't have us wanting to be interested in those guys. We might be interested. He's not an insider. And initially, I was like, I don't know. Should we bring in a Keenan Allen? Should we bring in a Mark Cooper? But this is before the draft. And they still could do that. But if Jack, which I'm calling him Little Jack, because Pete Carroll called him Little Jack during the draft, I'm calling him Little Jack because I like the Incredibles. I'm trying to make that a thing. So let's just spread the news there that his name is not Little Jack. If he doesn't like it, then don't do it. But we'll see. If Jack can come up here and be that wide receiver too, that's huge for us because then we don't have to spend a lot of money on Amari Cooper or Keenan Allen. Not that they'll cost a lot of money, but they might cost more than a second-round draft pick. I don't know where the chips are going to fall there. But let's discuss a little bit about every team's top roster needs, their trade assets, and their cap space following the 2025 NFL Draft. Thank the good Lord we have a good backup. Are you talking about Aiden O'Connell? Yeah, I appreciate that he's our backup, which I said. I made that prediction. It's not going to be a rookie. It's going to be Aiden O'Connell. Now, if it is Cam Miller, that's going to say a lot about Cam Miller as well. So this is Alex. May 22nd is every team's top needs. I already read you the title. We're going to scroll all the way down to the Raiders here, and we're going to see what they said. Okay, let's go a little bit faster here, folks. All right. Las Vegas Raiders, top needs. Cornerback, wide receiver, linebacker, offensive tackle, edge rusher, depth. What's interesting is they didn't list the tackle because, again, we hit that in the draft hard. Top trade assets: Michael Mayer, Dylan Parham, and Jacoby Myers. I would say Jacoby's not going anywhere. Pete Carroll, Jacoby Myers feels like a Pete Carroll and spy tech guy through and through. Parham could go if Caleb Rogers or Charles Grant show flashes, and I assume one of them is going to start because you got what Jordan Meredith, Cody White here. You've got guys that could play. And Parham might start too. But if one or two of those guys flash, I could see getting a pick for Dylan Parham. Was a decent player. Michael Mayer, he's always in the trade market just because we have Brock Bowers, but I would like to keep him and go that 12 personnel, baby. Cap space, $36.9 million. The Raiders addressed their top two needs in the draft, but it's best to keep realistic expectations. While Jack Besh and Darian Porter were worthy of their day two draft slots, both might take a while before they are actually contributors. I understand that, no doubt about it. Besh and Porter are similar prospects in the fact that they are big physical players for their position, but they each have 1 year of college production. Porter is a phenomenal athlete, but he only started one season at Iowa State. Besh flashed as a freshman at LSU in 2021, but didn't resurface as a big-time playmaker until his final season at TCU. That being said, the Raiders checked off their need for a running back with the difference maker Ashton Jeanty, who is one of the most highly anticipated running back prospects in decade for a reason. He'll need to be elite out of the gate because it's fair to wonder if the passing attack is really ready to scare secondaries. Jacoby Myers is still probably the top wide receiver they have, and he's in the final year of his contract. So, yeah, look, no doubt about it. He needs to be extended, and they need to get that done now. The jackhammer Jack Besh. I don't hate that either. I like little Jack better. I'm sure most people are going to, agree with you. I could see Jack Besh hitting like 700-800 yards a season. I would love that, dude. I would absolutely love if he had like 750. Would be so solid for him. So now that we know what the team needs are, let's discuss. And shout out to Mo Moen, who posted his article yesterday. I'll give him his little spiel here in the beginning, and then we'll skip right to the people that we're maybe interested in. In late spring, NFL free agency, some veterans are waiting to get a call, and others are weighing their options. Even so, it's hard to believe that teams have yet to sign these guys. We don't have a clear reason for being in an open market. At 41, Aaron Rodgers is contemplating retirement, so we know why he's still unsigned. According to ESPN's Jeremy Fowler, Asante Samuel Jr. underwent neck surgery, in April, and with a checkup in July, teams have a reason to monitor his recovery before attempting to sign him. But what about the other top free agents? We'll profile 10 free agents, 10 veterans who should be on rosters and link them to potential landing spots. So he didn't link us to Keenan. We don't need a safety. We don't need Amari Cooper, although I've heard rumblings. The first person he talks about, which is interesting, is J.K. Dobbins. So do I have it here? Yes, I do. Okay. He says, unfortunately for J.K. Dobbins, he had his most productive season in the year preceding a strong incoming running back class. That is unfortunate for him. Teams likely prefer fresh legs over a 6-year veteran with extensive injury history. Nonetheless, Dobbins showed he can carry most of the workload if necessary, accumulating a career high 195 carries for a personal best 905 yards with the Los Angeles Chargers, though he missed the final 4 games because of a knee injury, and that's a knock on him. Clubs can pair him with a young counterpart to preserve both players. Dobbins can be an effective number 2 running back behind Alvin Kamara with the New Orleans Saints. Rookie second round Tyler. Okay, so he talked a lot about the Saints here, but he also mentions, whoa, where did we go? Okay, sorry. Apologize. And we're back. He also mentions the Las Vegas Raiders as a potential fit. Now, I didn't think about going to get another running back because we had Raheem Mostert. But as Hot Mike User says, and I'm going to throw it out here to you guys, a running back room of Jeanty, Dobbins, and Mostert would, number one, I don't foresee this happening, but it would protect you from Jeanty being a little bit of a disappointment. I'm not predicting that. I'm just saying. Number two, it would protect you from potential injury. And number three, give you options. Raheem Mostert can be that pass-catching back, and then you can have Jeanty and Dobbins as a thunder-lightning combination. When Jeanty is, feeling the weight of the rookie workload as a top 6 pick, you could bring in J.K. Dobbins. And you don't have to worry about J.K. Dobbins getting hurt because he's one of 3 now. And a running back room of Ashton Jeanty